This is the story of a quiet girl named Leila, who stood at the edge of a school fair with a cardboard sign asking for a father for one night. It explores how one stranger's decision to stop, to stay, and to care sparked not just a bond, but a shift in how a small town viewed love belonging and what it truly means to be a parent. It's a story about presence, not perfection. The sign wasn't big, just an old piece of cardboard torn from a delivery box and written on in purple marker. Need a dad for the father-daughter dance. The words sagged slightly, as if the hope in them had started to wear thin. Still, Leila held the sign, steady fingers tight on the edges. Her dress was simple, a faded blue thing with tiny daisies. It wasn't new. Neither were her shoes. The laces were frayed, and the left sole flapped just a little with each step. She stood on the sidewalk just outside the entrance to the school fundraiser, where people bustled past, carrying caramel popcorn and raffle tickets and reusable tote bags stuffed with crafts. No one stopped. Elijah Ward was on his phone when he first noticed her. He'd come to town for one reason, only a construction review for a new library wing his firm had been contracted to design. He wasn't supposed to be there on a Saturday. He wasn't supposed to be walking that street. But a missed call from his assistant and a detour to the local hardware store had brought him right past the school grounds. He nearly missed her. Almost. He stopped mid-step when he saw the sign. At first, he wasn't sure what he was looking at. A child, holding a sign. For what then, his eyes focused. His heart stumbled. Need a dad for the father-daughter dance. He stood frozen for a beat too long. Cars passed behind him. A man brushed past muttering something about not blocking the sidewalk. Elijah barely registered it. His gaze stayed locked on the girl. She couldn't have been more than 9. Her hair was tied into 2 tight braids. Her chin was high defiant, but her eyes, those eyes carried a sadness so old, it didn't belong on someone that young. She didn't notice him at first. She was scanning the crowd, searching for, what a kind face. A brave heart Elijah didn't know. All he knew was that she was standing alone, and he couldn't walk past her. Not again. He stepped forward. Gravel crunched under his boots. When he got close enough, she turned and looked up. "Hey there," he said, his voice soft. "That's quite a sign." She blinked, then looked away. "It's real," she said. "I don't doubt that." He crouched down to her level, careful not to crowd her. "What's your name, Leila?" "Leila." He repeated it slowly. "That's a strong name." She shrugged. "It was my grandma's. Can I ask why you're out here?" "My school's having the father-daughter dance next week," she said. "You have to bring someone, like a dad, or a grandpa or uncle. But I don't got any of those. So, I thought maybe someone might want to go." Elijah swallowed hard. "You came out here hoping someone would see your sign?" I asked my mom. "She works nights at the clinic. She said I could try just for a little bit. She said some people are good, and maybe one would stop." Her lips pressed tight. "I made the sign myself. Took 3 tries." Elijah looked at her shoes, her dress, the smudge of marker still on her thumb. And he saw something he hadn't let himself feel in years. Pain. Familiar. Unshakable. His own daughter had once worn sparkly dresses, had once waited by windows, had once called him daddy with a light in her voice he didn't deserve. That light had gone out a long time ago. And now here was this child, this stranger holding up her hope like a banner, not knowing what it would cost her. Elijah cleared his throat. "You know I've never been to a father-daughter dance before." Leila looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You have a daughter?" I did. "A long time ago." His voice was gravel now. "Her name was Isla. She's not here anymore." Leila was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. Me too." They sat in that silence for a beat longer than felt normal on a sidewalk. Then she said, "You don't have to. I know people are busy. I just thought, maybe if someone stopped, maybe they'd mean it." Elijah stood slowly. "Leila, if you'll have me, I'd like to take you to that dance." Her eyes went wide, blinking as if trying to decide if she'd imagined the words. You're serious, I am. What if you change your mind? I won't. What if they don't let you? What if you're not allowed? Then we'll figure it out together. She said nothing, just nodded slowly. Then looked at him. Really, looked at him. Searching for lies. Finding none. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a piece of paper. This is the flyer. It says you have to be a parent, or something like that. You might have to talk to Ms. Rollins. She's the principal. I'll talk to her. Leila held out the flyer. Elijah took it. Their hands touched for half a second. Okay, she said. Okay. Elijah stood there for a long moment after she turned and walked toward the school building to meet her mom. The flyer crinkled in his hand. He looked at the bold letters: Monroe Elementary Father-Daughter Dance, Friday 6 p.m. Open to grades 1-5. Adult must be a parent or guardian. Guardian. Elijah stared at the word like it was a test. Maybe it was. He folded the flyer, gently tucked it into his jacket, and walked back toward his truck. The wind picked up slightly sharp, but not cruel. For the first time in years, he felt something inside shift. Not grief, not guilt. Something else. Something like purpose. The flyer crinkled in Elijah's pocket, the whole ride back to his motel. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't call his assistant back. He drove in silence, letting the question settle in his chest like a stone. What the hell am I doing? But he already knew. That girl, Leila, had cracked something open in him. He thought had calcified long ago. Her voice, her eyes, the fragile way she asked, "What if you change your mind?" It echoed through him with every turn of the wheels. He thought of Isla, her laugh, her last voicemail. "You missed it, Dad. But it's okay. I'm getting used to that." That message had lived inside him like a splinter. Now it throbbed anew. Elijah didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of the motel bed in the same clothes he'd worn to the hardware store, staring at the folded flyer on the nightstand. At 3 a.m., he opened his laptop, searched the school's website, found the principal's contact info. At 7:59, he hit send on an email with the subject line, "Request for dance exception. Leila, 4th grade." By 9:12, he was walking up the brick steps of Monroe Elementary with a knot in his stomach and a folder in hand. The front office secretary looked up as he stepped in. Elijah Ward. "I have a meeting with Principal Rollins at 9:15, he said. She nodded and stood. "She's expecting you." Principal Maggie Rollins was in her late 40s, wearing a simple blouse and glasses that sat low on her nose. Her office smelled like lemon polish and stress. "Mr. Ward," she said, standing to shake his hand. "You've caused quite the stir." "I didn't mean to." "Good intentions still ripple," she said calmly. "Sit." He did. "I read your email. You say you met Leila at the fundraiser." "She was outside," Elijah said, holding that sign. "I couldn't ignore her." "No one else stopped," Rollins said quietly. Elijah felt his throat tighten. "She asked me to take her to the dance. I said yes." Rollins leaned back. "Mr. Ward, I'm not unsympathetic. I know Leila's situation. Her mother's a nurse, works double shifts. Her father's never been in the picture. But the rules are clear. The dance is for legal guardians or family." "I'm not trying to break rules," Elijah said. "I just don't want her to stand there alone." Rollins studied him for a long moment. "Do you have any connection to the family?" "No. I'm a visitor. I'm here for a project. I wasn't supposed to take that street. But I did. So this was a coincidence." "Maybe," Elijah said. "But I don't think it was an accident." Rollins looked down at a notepad, then back up. "You'll need to fill out a background check form. References, proof of identity. We don't make exceptions lightly." "I brought everything." He placed the folder on her desk. "ID references clearance from my foundation's board, and an affidavit agreeing to whatever terms you need. You can assign a teacher to supervise if that helps. You've done your homework." "I made a promise," he said simply, "and she's counting on me to keep it." Rollins didn't respond for a moment. Then she said, "You'll hear back by tomorrow." He stood. "Thank you, Mr. Ward," she added before he left. She told her teacher yesterday that someone saw her. Those were her exact words. "He saw me." Not many kids say things like that, unless they mean them. Elijah didn't reply. He couldn't trust his voice. Later that day, he found himself parked across the street from a squat brick building with a flickering neon sign, Oak Ridge Medical, 24-hour urgent care. Inside, a receptionist confirmed that Nurse Darlene Carter would be on break in 15 minutes. He waited in the lobby. She arrived wearing scrubs, her curls tied back, a coffee cup in one hand, her expression tired and guarded. He stood. "Ms. Carter," he asked. She looked him over, once wary. "I'm Elijah Ward. I met your daughter yesterday." Her jaw tightened. "She told me. I just wanted to speak to you in person." Darlene glanced at the receptionist, then led him outside. They stood under the awning mist, settling in the air between them. "I don't know what this is," she said. "But if you're playing with her hope, I swear to God I'm not. She's not a project. She's a little girl who's had to grow up too fast. I know." Darlene crossed her arms. "She made that sign herself. I didn't think anyone would stop. I told her to be careful. I told her not to expect anything. And then, she came home smiling for the first time in months." "I didn't mean to find her," Elijah said. "But now that I have, I can't unsee her." "You have a family?" she asked. "I had one. I lost it." Darlene studied his face. "Why this? Why now?" "Because when I looked at her, I saw what I'd spent 10 years trying not to feel. Regret. And maybe a second chance." Silence stretched. "She won't understand if you back out," Darlene said. "I won't." Darlene finally sighed. "If Rollins clears you, and Leila still wants it, you can take her." Elijah nodded quiet. "Thank you." As he walked back to his truck, the drizzle turned into rain. It soaked through his jacket, but he didn't rush. The drops ran down his face, blending with something saltier. By the time he got back to his motel, the email was waiting. Subject approval for supervised participation. The message was short. "Mr. Ward, pending background check completion and staff accompaniment, Monroe Elementary, will allow you to attend the father-daughter dance as Leila Carter's guest." He sat down on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in years, Elijah Ward felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Elijah sat on the edge of the motel bed, rereading the email like it might vanish if he blinked. Approved. One word. And yet, it felt bigger than anything he'd built in his professional life. Leila would be expecting him. He imagined her hearing the news, the way her face might light up. And just as quickly, he felt the pressure that came with it. This wasn't just about one night. Not anymore. The next day, he walked into Rosie's Cafe, one of the few places open past breakfast in town, and found Leila and her mother already seated at a booth near the window. Darlene gave a small nod of recognition, still cautious, but no longer cold. Leila grinned when she saw him, a crayon clutched in one hand, her sketch of a princess, and what looked like a clumsy stick figure in a tie halfway done. "You came," she said like it was still a question, even though he had. "I said I would." Darlene gestured toward the empty seat. Elijah slid in across from them. "I got approved," he said. "We're on for Friday." Leila's eyes went wide. "Really? They said yes." He nodded. "I told Ms. Reed you were real," she said proudly. "Some girls didn't believe me." Elijah smiled. "Well, I guess now we have to make it count." They spent the next half hour making a list: what she wanted to wear, a purple dress with silver sparkles. What song she hoped would play. Something with a beat, so we can do twirls. And whether Elijah could dance at all. "I'll teach you," she decided. Darlene stayed mostly quiet, observing. Elijah noticed the slight tremble in her hand as she refilled her coffee, and he understood this wasn't easy for her either. After they parted ways, Elijah went straight to the shoe repair shop and left behind Leila's scuffed silver flats with instructions to clean, polish, and restore them like they were made of diamonds. Then, he walked into the local department store, and for the first time in over a decade, asked for help picking out a suit for something that wasn't a funeral or a fundraiser. By Wednesday, the town had caught wind. It started with whispers. Someone had seen the stranger talking to Principal Rollins. Someone else spotted him with Leila and Darlene at the cafe. By Thursday morning, a post appeared on the local message board. Anyone know what's going on with the fancy guy, and that Carter girl saw them picking out shoes. That dance is for dads. Replies, he's from out of town. Architect or something. PR stunt. Sweet if it's real. Creepy if it's not. Elijah didn't read the threads. But Darlene did. And on Thursday evening, she called him. They're talking, she said, not angry, just tired. Saying things. Some of it's not kind. I figured, Elijah said. You okay? I've heard worse, she admitted. I just don't want Leila getting hurt. She's been through enough. I understand. You still coming? Of course. A pause. Then she picked out your tie color, said it has to match her dress. Elijah chuckled. What color am I looking for? Silver, with purple accents. I'm on it. Friday came fast. Elijah arrived early at the school. The parking lot was filling up trucks, minivans, a few older sedans. Fathers in polo shirts, some in pressed uniforms, a few in suits that hadn't been worn since their own graduations. Girls in tulle and glitter bouncing with nervous energy. Inside the gym had been transformed. Paper lanterns hung from the ceiling. A string of fairy lights lined the walls. The DJ was setting up near the back, and folding chairs circled the makeshift dance floor. Leila waited in the library with Mrs. Reed, her teacher. When Elijah walked in, he paused. She looked like a star. The purple dress shimmered when she turned. Her hair was braided neatly, silver ribbons woven through. She wore the polished silver shoes like they were glass slippers. You look incredible, Elijah said. Leila giggled. You remembered the tie, he smiled. Wouldn't miss it. She stepped forward, then stopped. You sure you want to do this? Everyone's gonna look. I'm sure, he said, offering his arm. And I don't care who looks. They walked down the hall together, arm in arm. As they entered the gym, the room quieted. Conversations paused. Heads turned. The music dimmed. Elijah felt it immediately, the weight of every stare, the judgment, the questions. But then he looked down at Leila. Her grip had tightened slightly. She kept her chin up. They stepped onto the floor. The music swelled again, a slow, steady beat. Leila turned toward him, and Elijah placed his hands where she'd taught him, right hand gently on her back, left hand holding hers. She nodded. 1, 2, 3. That's how we count it. He followed. A little stiff at first. But she laughed, and he loosened up. Around them, others began to dance again. Conversations resumed. But some kept watching, not with disdain, but with curiosity, and maybe admiration. Midway through the song, Leila leaned in and whispered, You're doing better than I thought. I had a good teacher. They twirled. She laughed. It was real. And somewhere in that swirl of music and glitter and cautious smiles, Elijah Ward stopped being the outsider. He became Leila Carter's father for a night. And maybe, just maybe, for more than that. That night, as Elijah drove back to the motel, the scent of vanilla punch still lingered on his cuffs, and a trace of glitter clung to his jacket like it refused to be forgotten. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't need to. Leila's laughter still echoed in his ears, looping like a favorite song. He had walked into that gym a stranger. He left it holding the hand of a girl who smiled at him like he'd always belonged there. But the quiet didn't last. The following morning, Elijah stopped at the diner for coffee. He didn't make it through the door before a woman in a fleece vest and pearl earrings cornered him at the entrance. "You're that man from the dance, right?" she asked. "No hello. No name." "I am Elijah," said cautiously. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, people are talking. I suppose you should know. Talking about what about you? Why you're here? What you want?" He met her gaze. I'm here because a little girl asked me not to walk away. She blinked, thrown off. Right. Of course. Just, some folks don't like things that don't fit the usual mold. Then maybe the mold needs changing. Inside the diner was unusually quiet. A few heads turned. Darlene stood behind the counter, wiping down a tray. She didn't smile when she saw him. She nodded just once and poured him a coffee to go. They've been buzzing since last night, she said softly, sliding the cup across the counter. I figured. It's not you, she added. It's the story they think you represent. They don't like the unknown. I'm not going anywhere. I know. She looked down. Neither are we. Later that day, Elijah received a message from his assistant in Chicago. Jameson Group Board wants a word. Some of our donors saw the dance photos online. They're concerned about optics. He stared at the message, unblinking. It wasn't a surprise, but it still hit harder than he expected. In the photos that had spread online first from the school's PTA page, then picked up by a local lifestyle blog, Elijah could be seen kneeling beside Leila in the library, adjusting her silver shoe. In another, they danced, her head resting lightly against his chest. The captions varied. Local girl gets fairy tale moment with stranger turned dad. PR stunt billionaire shows up at dance for child he just met. Elijah didn't respond to his assistant's call. Instead, he drove to the edge of town, where the river curved quietly around a row of willow trees. He stood there for a long time, staring at the water, unsure if he was trying to calm down or brace himself for the next hit. That evening, he knocked on Darlene's door. She answered in sweats, hair in a loose bun, the tiredness in her eyes unmistakable. You okay? She asked. No, Elijah admitted. But I'm learning that's not always a bad thing. She stepped aside and let him in. Leila was on the floor in the living room, coloring a comic strip of some kind. When she saw him, she lit up. Hey, I'm drawing us as superheroes. He smiled, heart lifting. I can't wait to see. They spent the next hour together, Leila explaining how her superhero alter ego could shoot glitter that made mean people nice. Elijah helped fold laundry, while Darlene prepared leftovers. It felt ordinary. And for Elijah, that was a kind of magic he hadn't known he missed. After Leila went to bed, they sat on the couch quiet for a while. She won't stop talking about the dance, Darlene said. It meant more than I think you understand. I think I'm starting to, Elijah replied. She gave me something too. Darlene looked over at him. So what now? I don't know, he said. But I want to keep showing up. Not just for events. For all of it. Homework, recitals, bad dreams. Darlene studied him. You're serious. I am. I've had people make promises before, she said. They usually vanish by the second round of dishes. I'm not asking you to trust me yet, he said gently. I'm asking for a chance to earn it. There was a pause. Then she reached over to the side table and picked up something small. A bracelet. Beads strung loosely on elastic, a child's creation of mismatched colors. She made this for you, Darlene said. After the dance. Elijah took it carefully, sliding it over his wrist. It was too tight, but he didn't care. She told me, if he wears it, he can't forget us. He looked down at the bracelet, and then up at Darlene. I won't. A week later, Elijah joined Leila for a school project at the local library. They built a diorama together. It was small, but she insisted it had to include a dance floor. When the project was displayed in the hallway, one teacher wrote in the comment book, "This is more than art. It's a declaration." Leila added a sticky note below it. Mr. Elijah kept his promise. The next morning, Principal Rollins called Elijah into her office. You've become a fixture, she said. I hope that's a good thing. It is, but it's also bringing more attention than we're used to. Some of the school board is watching closely. Elijah nodded. I understand. She leaned forward. So let me ask you directly, what are your intentions to stay? He said. To be present. For as long as they'll let me. Rollins smiled just faintly. Then maybe it's time to stop calling you a guest. When Elijah left the office, he passed Leila's classroom. She spotted him through the window and grinned, holding up her drawing two stick figures, dancing under a banner that read, "Not just one night." Elijah smiled back, bracelet snug against his wrist heart, full in a way that no business deal had ever delivered. This was no longer a moment. It was becoming a life. Elijah stood in the hallway outside Leila's classroom a moment longer, watching her beam behind the glass. Not just one night. The words on her drawing felt less like a title now, and more like a quiet vow, one he hadn't even realized he'd made, until it was already holding steady inside him. Back at his motel, he opened his laptop to a flood of messages. His assistant had sent another 5 emails, all flagged urgent. The subject lines read like a ticking clock: NYC Board Concerns. PR Advisory Meeting Request for Statement. Impact on Legacy Projects. Your presence in Bellington. The dance had gone viral in ways no one predicted. The video, taken by a teacher and meant to be shared with families, had spread across social media within days. Elijah adjusting Leila's silver shoes, their awkward but heartfelt twirl on the dance floor. Her giggle when he spun her too fast. It was tender, raw, and totally unfiltered. But it wasn't just the footage. It was the speculation that followed. Some saw redemption. Others smelled damage control. A few accused him of exploiting the girl's loneliness to reshape his public image. That night, after ignoring 3 more calls, Elijah went for a walk down Main Street. Bellington was quiet after dark. Shop windows glowed faintly. A bell above the closed bookstore door chimed faintly in the wind. He paused outside the diner. Through the glass, Darlene was wiping down Counter's apron, tied tight, her expression unreadable. She hadn't responded to his text that afternoon. He opened the door. The bell above rang once. She looked up. "Hey," she said, guarded. "Can we talk?" She nodded toward the end booth. He sat down. "I got calls today," he said. "Donors, board members, PR people. They want me to walk this back." "Are you going to?" she asked, her tone even. "No." Her face softened, if only slightly. "They think you're using her." He nodded. "Or trying to distract from something." "Are you?" "No," he said firmly. "I didn't plan this. I didn't want cameras. I wanted to keep a promise." Darlene looked at him for a long time. This town's seen a lot of people pass through. Some leave pieces of themselves. Most just leave. Leila's had enough people walk away. "I'm not walking, I know," she said. "But not everyone does." He looked at her hands clasped. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to not flinch," she said. "When people start whispering louder. When the first story twists. When someone says she's not really yours." Elijah nodded. "I won't flinch." Darlene took off her apron, sat across from him, and slid over a paper note folded in half. "She wrote this today," she said. "Said I could give it to you if you looked tired." Elijah opened the note. Crayon handwriting sprawled across the page. "Dear Mr. Elijah, even if people don't get it, I still do. You danced with me like I wasn't invisible. That's better than any crown. If it gets hard, just remember you made me feel seen. Love, Leila." His throat tightened. "She's got more courage than half the people I've ever known." "She's had to," Darlene said. Elijah left the diner close to midnight. The town was asleep, but his mind wasn't. The next morning, he drove to the school early, sat in his truck with the heater humming the sky just starting to blue. At 7:30, Principal Rollins pulled into the lot. He caught her at the door. "I need a meeting," he said. "Soon." She checked her watch. "You're in luck. I have 15 minutes. Inside her office, Elijah didn't sit. "I want to start something," he said. Rollins raised an eyebrow. "Something like what A program? For kids like Leila, who don't have someone to show up for them. Not just one night. For reading nights, math help, recitals, everything." Rollins leaned back. "You're serious?" "I've already spoken to lawyers," Elijah continued. "I'll fund the first year. I'll staff it. I'll mentor myself. I want to call it One Night Isn't Enough." Rollins didn't speak for a long moment. Then, "That name sounds exactly like something Leila would say." Elijah smiled. "She kind of did." "Can you handle the heat this will bring?" "I can," he said. "As long as she's never left standing with a sign again." The foundation paperwork was filed by the end of the week. Within 2 months, One Night Isn't Enough had a small office in Bellington's community center. Posters went up in schools. Kids signed up. Volunteers trickled in. A local barber offered free trims before school events. A retired music teacher signed on for weekend lessons. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. And every week, without fail, Elijah showed up. He helped Leila with her math, sat in on her reading circle, bought cupcakes for her classroom on her birthday. And when someone at the gas station muttered, "She ain't even his," Elijah smiled and said, "She is where it counts." Still, not everyone saw it that way. At a school board meeting, one parent stood up and asked, "When did we start letting strangers play parent?" Elijah didn't answer that night, but Leila did. At her school's spring assembly, she took the microphone with shaking hands and a glittery headband. "My project is about being seen," she said. "Not everyone has a dad. Not everyone gets picked up after school or has someone in the bleachers. But sometimes someone chooses you, even when they don't have to." She held up a drawing, a man kneeling beside a girl with silver shoes. And sometimes she finished, "That's enough to be family." The applause started slow. Then it grew. When she stepped off the stage, Elijah was waiting at the bottom step, tears he didn't bother hiding. She reached up and took his hand. "You still okay, Mr. Elijah?" He looked down at her, his voice thick. "I'm better than okay." And as they walked out of the auditorium together, under a banner that read, "Spring into Kindness," he knew. They weren't just rewriting her story. They were starting a whole new one together. The gym doors closed behind them with a quiet thud, but the sound of the applause still lingered in Elijah's ears. Leila's small hand stayed wrapped in his, swinging gently as they stepped out into the crisp afternoon air. She was still smiling, but it wasn't the giddy kind that came with cupcakes or cartoons. It was deeper, like she'd finally exhaled something heavy she'd been holding onto for far too long. That smile stayed with Elijah the rest of the day. The next morning, he woke early and walked through the town square, passing by the community center, where a new banner had gone up over the entrance. One Night Isn't Enough. Mentorship, belonging, presence. The program had grown faster than anyone expected. What started as a quiet promise between him and Leila was now a movement. Elijah was no longer just a name whispered at the diner. He was a weekly presence in classrooms, library corners, and cafeteria tables. Kids started calling him Mr. E. Some even asked if he could be their school dad. He never laughed when they said it. He always knelt down, looked them in the eye, and said, "I'll be here as long as you need me." But the more time he spent with Leila, the clearer one thing became. She didn't just need a guest in her life. She needed something lasting, something permanent. He brought it up to Darlene one Friday evening as they stood on her porch watching Leila draw constellations with sidewalk chalk on the driveway. "I've been thinking," he said carefully. "That's usually how trouble starts," she replied, arms folded, but tone gentle. "I want to be there for more than school projects or fundraisers," he said. "I want to be her father for real. I want to adopt her." Darlene didn't speak at first. Her eyes stayed fixed on her daughter. "She already calls you her dad to her friends," she finally said. "You know that." Elijah's breath caught. "No, but that means everything." "She does it quietly," Darlene continued, "like she's afraid someone might take it away." "I won't." Darlene turned to him. "Then you need to make it real, with paperwork, with permanence. You ready for that kind of weight?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Elijah said. A week later, they sat together in the office of a local family lawyer. Leila played with a stress ball shaped like a strawberry, while Elijah and Darlene signed the initial paperwork. The attorney, a woman named Ms. Vance, explained the timeline. There would be interviews, home visits, background checks, even though the school had already done them. Through it all, Leila watched with wide, serious eyes. When they left, she didn't ask a single question. But that night, she left something on Elijah's pillow at the motel, a drawing of 3 stick figures under a banner that said, "Real Family." For real. She'd drawn a dog too, with a note underneath. Maybe someday. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. The story simmered beneath the surface of town gossip. Some people cheered. Others whispered. One parent at the grocery store said, "It's noble, but isn't he still leaving in a few months?" Another muttered something about Leila being a project that Elijah would tire of. But none of that mattered when he stepped through the door of Darlene's home and heard Leila yell from the hallway, "Dad, you're early." Every single time it hit him like the first. They celebrated Leila's 10th birthday, with cupcakes, sidewalk chalk games, and mismatched paper crowns. Elijah wore his all night. Darlene made a chocolate cake from scratch. When it tipped sideways while cutting, Leila laughed so hard she dropped her slice, then asked for another. "This is the best birthday," she whispered to Elijah later, as he tucked her into bed. "Not because of cake. Because you stayed." "I'm staying forever," he whispered back. In the months that followed, the adoption process moved forward one form and interview at a time. Elijah moved out of the motel and into a rental house 2 streets over from the school. He traded in his luxury SUV for a second-hand pickup, learned how to make spaghetti without burning it, forgot how to tie a tie, and had to Google it before Leila's award ceremony. She won a ribbon for a story she'd written, "The Girl Who Found a Dad in the Middle of a Tuesday." Elijah cried reading it. Darlene did too, though she tried to hide it. One Friday evening, while walking Leila home from her after-school club, she paused under the old elm tree at the corner. "Can I ask something?" she said. "Anything. If you adopt me, will I have to change my last name?" "Only if you want to," Elijah replied. She was quiet. Then, "Can I be Leila Carter Ward?" He knelt down, tears forming again. "That sounds perfect." The final court date came on a rainy Tuesday. The courthouse was small, the judge patient. Leila wore a yellow dress with a blue cardigan and held Elijah's hand the whole time. When the gavel fell and the adoption was made official, she looked up at Elijah and whispered, "We did it, huh?" He bent down and kissed her forehead. "Yeah, kid. We really did." They walked out of the courthouse into drizzle, a paper umbrella in one hand and a signed certificate in the other. Elijah carried her to the truck like she was still 5. At home, Darlene had balloons taped to the kitchen wall and meatloaf in the oven. That night, after dishes and cake and stories, Leila slipped something onto Elijah's wrist. A new bracelet. This one was sturdier, woven with care. "Because the other one's getting old," she said. "But this one's for always." Elijah looked at her, heart swelling. "So are we." The new bracelet was simple woven strands of blue, silver, and yellow. Leila had made it using the same kit she'd once used for friendship bands, but this one was different. She tied it snugly around Elijah's wrist herself, tugged to make sure it stayed, then looked up at him with a proud little nod. "It's not just for always," she said. "It's also waterproof." Elijah laughed, eyes glistening. "Good. I plan on wearing it everywhere." And he did. He wore it to city council meetings, to the mentorship workshops at the community center, to Saturday pancake mornings with Leila and Darlene. It became a quiet emblem, less flashy than the headlines, but far more real. When people saw it, they stopped asking why he was still in Bellington. The answer was in the thread. As summer turned to fall, things changed not loudly, but permanently. Leila started middle school that September. Her backpack was too big for her, her nervous energy barely contained as she stood in the kitchen on the first day. Elijah was the one who packed her lunch. Darlene braided her hair. As they walked her to the front gate, she reached for both their hands, one on each side, and said, "I'm not nervous, just medium excited." She walked in on her own, but turned once before the doors. Elijah waved. She smiled. That evening, after she'd gone to bed, Elijah and Darlene sat outside on the porch swing, nursing mugs of lukewarm tea. "She's different now," Darlene said. "Yeah," Elijah said, but not in a bad way. "No," she agreed. "In a grounded way. Like she finally knows she belongs somewhere." Elijah didn't say anything for a while. Then, "She's not the only one." By now, One Night Isn't Enough had evolved from a pilot program into a regional initiative. Nearby towns reached out asking for mentorship templates. Retired bus drivers signed up. Widowed grandmothers became math tutors. Even a few high schoolers began shadowing volunteers wanting to learn how to show up for someone. But something bigger was happening too. Bellington itself was changing. The mural downtown was repainted, not with founders or dates, but with a circle of hands holding up a single paper sign, "Need a dad for the dance." In the center of the image, a girl smiled. A man knelt beside her, tying her silver shoes. The artist never signed it. They didn't have to. Elijah hadn't intended to stay. His name was still listed as senior advisor on 2 architecture projects back in Chicago. But he never returned to them. Instead, he built a new plan, turning the old community center's basement into a youth-led creative lab. Leila called it the Bright Room. The name stuck. Darlene, too, found her balance. Her night shifts became part-time work. She began speaking at parenting panels and working with single moms who felt overwhelmed and invisible. Once she said to Elijah, "I didn't expect this chapter. I thought I was done starting over." He'd replied, "Sometimes the best chapters start when you stop trying to write them." It was at the Fall Harvest Festival that things truly came full circle. Elijah had been asked to give a speech. He didn't want to. He wasn't a speaker. But Darlene gave him that look, the one that said, "If not you, who?" So he agreed. They set up a makeshift stage near the town's square string lights, hanging from wooden beams. Leila wore a cardigan she'd tie-dyed herself. Darlene stood off to the side with a cider in hand. When Elijah stepped up to the microphone, he took a moment to just look. Really look. At the kids chasing each other across the grass. At the parents chatting by the booths. At the volunteers from the mentorship program wearing their bright green shirts. He cleared his throat. "Hi," he began. "I'm Elijah. I think most of you know me by now." Some scattered laughs. "I came here by accident, just passing through, and I met a girl holding a sign." He paused, looked at Leila. She didn't ask for much. Just one night, one dance, one person who wouldn't walk past her. He glanced down at the bracelet on his wrist, then back up. That one night became 100 small moments. Homework help, bedtime stories, late-night tea with her mom. The kind of moments that don't make headlines, but they make a life. The crowd was quiet now. I've made mistakes in my life. Big ones. I missed things I shouldn't have. But Leila taught me something. Presence matters more than perfection. And choosing someone day after day is the most radical kind of love there is. A pause. Then, so if you're here tonight, wondering what you can do to make a difference, it's this. Don't wait for a sign. Be one. The crowd erupted, not loud or chaotic, but heartfelt. Real. Darlene wiped her eyes. Leila ran up to the stage and hugged him around the waist. "Good speech," she said. "Way less boring than last year's guy." He laughed, picked her up, and held her high. That night, under those same string lights, they danced again. No formal occasion. No titles. Just a girl and her dad spinning slowly in the grass, while music played from a too-small speaker. "You think people will stop talking about us now?" Leila asked as they danced. "Maybe," Elijah said. "But I don't mind if they don't." "Me either," she whispered. "They don't know the best parts anyway." And she was right. Because the best parts weren't in the speeches or the stories. They were in the quiet braiding hair in the morning, whispering jokes during reading hour, picking the right kind of apple at the store, calling someone dad, not because you have to, but because you want to. The festival lights glowed around them. The stars came out. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Without any grand announcement or final scene, they became a family, not just for one night, but for always.